Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Hi, everybody. Joe Trippi here, Democratic strategist and host of That Trippi Show and my new show, On the Ground with Joe Trippi. With me once again is the other Joe, celebrated journalist and also incredible fiction writer, Joe Klein. Joe's been covering politics for a long time, and a little longer than I've been running them, but sometimes we agree, other times not so much. Joe, where do you want to get started, my friend?
Well, I would like to get started with a quote of the week because it reflects what's been happening this week, which is different from what was happening last week. So roll that quote.
So let me put an idea in your head, okay? Because it's so hard to get the Senate to do anything, now they're on recess, they don't get anything done if they never get the Save America Act done. You have the right to declare a national security emergency for elections. And the Supreme Court ruled in 1983 under Reagan that INS versus Chadha, that if you declare a national security emergency as the President of the United States, they can't challenge it. It can only be overturned by a 2/3 vote of both houses of Congress. So if you do this in the next month, we will get photo ID, proof of citizenship, and a limit to mail-in ballots. And
Let
you
me
don't
just
even
say that
need
stranger
the
things
Senate
have
vote.
happened. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
All right, we'll leave it at that. So let me.
Stranger things have happened. That means that the boy is a little bit frightened. He's not looking too good these days, and he should be a little bit frightened because, as you continually point out, and it happened again last night in Minnesota and Wisconsin, the turnout in Democratic primaries is stratospheric. There's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm out there, and it also doesn't hurt when the candidate who wants to abolish Thanksgiving loses. But I think that I think you have a quote of the week that a stat of the week that reflects that.
Well, it also reflects why he would have to do what was being urged in that video of yours, and that is the stat of the week. Yeah, 27%. He's got an upside down Trump record low net approval rating is now there's a 27-point gap in the wrong direction between his unfavorable and favorable. And so that might be a sign of why, Joe, your quote of the week is being urged. Because frankly, yeah, the turnouts are happening. We see a big turnout differential. It's not looking very good here for him, and that's why. And I don't. By the way, we're talking about approval of 18% among independents. That's how you get that kind of a gap. But let's move on. We're joined today by State Senator Sean McCann, the newly minted Democratic nominee in Michigan's 4th Congressional District. Welcome, Sean.
Thanks so much for having me on, gentlemen. Real honor and pleasure.
Now, you're involved in one of the tough races, one of the real toss-ups. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your district and your opponent?
Yeah, sure. It definitely is a toss-up race here, one of the most competitive ones in the country, and that's not to the prior expectations of what's been typically viewed for the race here. So we are making it competitive, and it's a trending district. So the district is Southwest Michigan, so the freshwater coast of Lake Michigan, which is across the lake from Chicago. And we basically have a triangle that starts with St. Joe Benton Harbor, a lakeshore pair of cities that then runs up the coast of Lake Michigan to Holland, and then comes back down at a bit of an angle to where I'm at in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Yes, there really is a Kalamazoo. And Battle Creek, our cereal city of the world, where your frosted flakes and cornflakes are made. And it leaves out Congresswoman Hillary Scholten's district, which is sort of this Grand Rapids area, kind of the largest sort of municipal area on the west side of Michigan right now. So that's the district. And, I've been in Kalamazoo for 36 years. I came here to go to Western Michigan University, go Broncos. It's my alma mater. And I've been here ever since and been involved in public service ever since. And this is, we'll get into it some more maybe later on, but a lot of the district is what's considered old Congressman Fred Upton's district, his old district. And that was reshaped in 2022. Michigan's got an independent redistricting commission now. So we've kind of been on the sidelines of these terrible gerrymandering wars. But this is a district that's trending to purple. And it's a seat that I think I'm a good fit for.
Mm-hmm. And what are the issues there that you're finding? What are people concerned about? And let's not forget your opponent.
Yes. So the opponent is Bill Huizenga, a longtime member of Congress. Again, has only had part of the district for a few years now, and really no daylight that you're going to find between him and Donald Trump on any of their policies. And a lot of those policies run counter to the things that I've done as a local and state elected official. And, this is a race that is, to no surprise to you, about most people's costs going up in the face of a president who said he'd bring their costs down on day one. So those gas prices are hitting here. The tariffs have had an impact, as you might imagine. And, with passage of the one big bill, which the incumbent voted for, people are losing their health care, both through, loss of Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act tax credits that weren't extended. So, those are some of the biggies here. And of course, a lot of it's driven by this war that no one asked for with Iran, the gas prices that are going up, and the fertilizer costs for our farmers here in Southwest Michigan are all being felt. This is just, a whole set of broken promises. And this is a congressman here currently that's right on board with all that. I can't explain it. I'm running against him. He needs to go.
Joe?
So what's the registration make? I mean, I know you're saying it's trending, but is it still, plus R, or where is that in the?
Yeah, so from the start, Cook Political Reports had it as a base R+3 district, but every race rating has moved more and more towards a toss-up, and this is where we're basically at. We have one of the latest primaries in the country. Obviously, you had Wisconsin yesterday, but Michigan was a week prior to that. And we've seen similar indicators, canary in the coal mine. We had a special election in April to fill the vacant seat in our Michigan State Senate after Congresswoman Kristen McDonald-Rivet moved up to the U.S. House. And her race had been a toss-up when she won. And then in the spring of this year was expected to be a toss-up race again, and it moved 19 points to the Democrat. So yes, this is a race that I'm very cognizant of. Needs more than just Democrats voting for the Democratic candidate on the ballot. And I'm deeply targeting independents, disaffected Republicans, as big a tent as I can make here, because that's how we win with more than just, the amount of Democrats that are in the district. But the population trends are to the favor of a purple district going to light blue. The Democratic, as you said, enthusiasm is way up. We had 100,000 primary voters in the Democratic side compared to 85,000 in the Republican side for the 4th Congressional District. And, this is what we're seeing all over the country. Michigan's turnout was way up. Harbingers of 2018, 2006, 2008.
No, a +3 is not a safe district for a Republican who's who's doing everything Donald Trump supports and with Trump's approval. I mean, again, looking at those independents that you're talking about, I mean, independents are at 18% approval. So they're literally in every election result I've seen, going back to November of last year in Virginia and New Jersey, but across the whole country, independents are literally, 25, 75 for Democrats. I mean, they are that's a real strong group to go after. And what are you doing town halls? I mean, what have you been out there? What are you picking up? I mean, and also, is there any data center or any of that kind of stuff happening in the district at all? I'm curious about that because everywhere else that's been a big issue, but maybe not in your district.
As a former state representative and current state senator, I've done town halls, coffee hours. They're kind of really an expectation for someone wanting to serve in public service. You would think that's not that high of a bar to jump over. And I've done some listening sessions in the course of this campaign and plan to do more. In fact, I've got an official coffee hour coming up next week. Public's invited. It's a great listening opportunity. It's where I hear things that are on the minds. And that, the congressman that's the incumbent here, Bill Huizenga, hasn't had any kind of a public town hall, public availability since 2018. So we're talking a long time that there's just this unwillingness to go and be available to the public. And so then, to your other point, when I do these things, we hear about a lot of issues. Data centers is certainly one of them. I'm a co-sponsor of a package of bills in the Michigan Senate to put some really strong guardrails on potential data center development. It's a big concern. People don't want any negative impacts from something like those, or really any other kind of economic development initiative that might be proposed. Companies can't come in and take the community's resources, whether it's water or electricity or jobs, and not be a net positive. So that comes up for sure, and as well, a whole host of other issues. And I'll just say, we're, as a legislator now, and there's some relevance to the national scene here. Data centers are a very much emerging issue that really weren't on the radar screen 3-4 years ago. But I can tell you this: your incumbent congressman here, Bill Huizenga, I think is rolling out the welcome mat to data centers, as far as I can tell. Hasn't really said that he's in favor of many guardrails at all, and that's because corporate donors, his big backers, don't want that. So that's just one of many things, whether it's healthcare or keeping an old coal plant lit up in the district, where he's beholden to the people who've been funding his campaigns for the last 15 years, those big donors in Washington, D.C. So it's a huge contrast. I'm here to listen to the constituents, and I'm here to serve the people in the district. And it's really a mystery to me how folks in Washington seem to think that the policies they've been putting out are helping everyday people, because they're just not.
You're going to have, obviously, you're going to run on affordability and maybe even tie in the price of gasoline to the war in Iran. But the other guys are going to run on another Middle East situation, and it's typified by your U.S. Senate candidate, Abdul El-Sayed. The question is, what's your position on Israel? How are you going to handle this issue? And is it going to be a problem in Michigan? Obviously, his presence on the ticket makes it a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm running a race against Bill Huizenga, and I think that he is basically, again, a rubber stamp to the Trump administration and their foreign policies, his foreign policies. So, the Netanyahu approach here in the Middle East and Israel is wrong. It's terrible, and it's supported by Trump and then supported by this Congress, his Republican Congress allies that aren't doing anything to rein in the war in Iran. Bill Huizenga hasn't voted for any of the votes for the War Powers Act in Congress when he had the opportunity to exert some kind of congressional oversight authority on the foreign policy you're seeing out of the Trump administration. So, I've certainly heard from people along the way that this is an issue. But I think that, what I'm hearing from people in Southwest Michigan is about healthcare, their costs. They're trying to raise a family. They can't get housing. I'm a soccer dad. I got 2 kids with my spouse, and, we feel the pinch in the grocery bill. We see the fact that young people are struggling to afford housing. So, a flipped U.S. House in Democratic control brings real guardrails and oversight and the ability to investigate how this administration has conducted its foreign policy and whether it's going to be able to continue that way unfettered or not. And hopefully this is what we're going to accomplish in November.
The affordability issue is interesting because you have things that a president can affect, like the price of gasoline, as we're seeing in the war in Iran. But there are more fundamental parts to it that you're going to need a congressional approval for, which are health insurance reform, energy grid reform, and what was the third one? Oh, I feel like the former governor of Texas.
Happens to me all the time.
Yes. No, it shouldn't happen to you. You're young. But do you think? What do you think about the possibilities, given the way the Democrats have been treated by the Republicans in the current Congress? What are the possibilities of coming up with a bipartisan answer for health insurance and for the energy grid? And I've just thought of it, housing. What specific policies do you propose that you think could be sold on a bipartisan basis?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I come from the Michigan Senate and House, where I've actually been in all iterations of balance of power in government. Came into a fully controlled legislature and governor's office by the Republicans, and then served in the Senate, where we had Governor Whitmer as governor, but the House and the Senate were controlled by Republicans, and then had the ability to be in the majority with the House and the Senate and the governor for a period of 2 years. And, what that teaches me is that, things aren't easy, but, you have to work on bipartisanship and find the places where you can agree. And actually the predecessor here, our congressman before Representative Huizenga, as I mentioned before, Fred Upton, is one of those people that worked very hard on comprehensive immigration reform, for example. And that got almost all the way done until Donald Trump decided to pull the rug out from under it, thinking that it would help his electoral chances, and then now has created this disaster and nightmare with the way ICE conducts itself. But back to the ability to work together, I see myself very much as a person willing to work across the aisle, however and wherever it makes sense, because our constituents demand results, and they don't really, I think, are interested in partisan games. People who are just there to argue with other people. I built some really good relationships in Lansing here and with Republicans across the aisle. We've gotten some things done that I think are in that middle lane that most folks expect to see out of Washington. So, finally to your question, I think that the first place where people can negotiate and accomplish things is going to be in the budgetary realm. So being able to negotiate continuing resolutions, budget bills, and spending is a huge policy impact and outcome. I think it will be harder, quite frankly, to get there right away on healthcare and, let's say, immigration reform, because you got to, get along with all 3 branches. But the signal that gets sent when the House gets flipped and potentially the Senate gets flipped in November will make it, I hope, unmistakable that there's a country that's ready for a change. They're not happy with the way the status quo is and how things have worked out for them. And hopefully everyone will get the message on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah, I keep talking about look, I don't see a blue wave coming. It's a change wave. I mean, literally, because so many independents and, I mean, gosh, people who hate both parties are voting. They're voting, and they're voting to change from Trump and MAGA and the Republicans right now. I mean, in some of these elections have been the double haters have been breaking 8-2 for the Democrats. So it's a demand for change from this sort of just, I think, sort of like, so polarized that nothing's getting done. That's what the change they want. I mean, it's, some want bigger change than that, bolder change than that. But most people just want, like, can we at least change this thing so something gets done for us, not for the special interests that both parties have been too focused on in Washington. I think that's part of what's, and the other thing too is it's there are independent voices or different voices on the Democratic side. The problem right now on the Republican side, there's no one to talk to because it's one person who, I mean, so any of these issues like healthcare or like immigration, no, one guy thought it'd be a great issue for him. By the way, he was right, used it, and it worked, but it didn't get anything done to solve the problem. And now he's made it worse. So I do think that this is really a message of change. And are you finding that? I mean, as you're doing these coffees in town hall, I mean, it just seems to me that people have, and I'm sure high gas prices and other things have elevated that. But I think it's not just the economy. I think it's all of it. It's ICE. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I think it's change and broken promises, and things were supposed to get better. Things were promised to get better. People were promised no more wars. And it's a lot of broken promises, and it's a lot of higher bills, and it's a lot of corruption. Why would there's this false Department of Energy emergency, so-called emergency, that the DOE and the Trump administration have used to justify keeping open old coal burning plants around the Midwest and around the country, one of which happens to be right here in the 4th Congressional District. And the coal trains had to start rolling again to keep this plant open that was designed and planned to be shut down. And this plant is costing $600,000 a day to operate beyond its useful and expected lifetime. And it's continuing to pollute people downwind. The particles, are blown into people's houses. They've wanted this plant closed. But my overall point is that, that's driving up higher electric bills. We've got groceries up, we've got gas up, and that's, like you say, people want that change, and they're super frustrated. And I understand the frustration, goes across both parties. That's why I'm trying to just talk to everyone I can, regardless of partisan affiliation. One of the favorite things we like to say around Michigan is there's not a Republican or Democratic way to fix a pothole. People just want the roads fixed. And that's obviously what Governor Gretchen Whitmer has focused a lot of her 2 terms on, is fixing the roads here. And that's not lost on me. People just want to not have their axles broken, have to pay for car repairs, smooth roads. Business wants that as well. So, I mean, you're right. It's a change sentiment, and this is what we hope that people bring about in November.
Bringing this around to where we started, are you concerned that the president might declare a state of emergency? And how would it affect voting in your district? And what are you doing now to counteract that?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. And I'm glad you brought us back to that, because I'd made a note at the outset. We fortunately have Jocelyn Benson, our candidate for governor, is also our current Secretary of State. Dana Nessel is our amazing Attorney General here. And of course, our Governor Gretchen Whitmer, we have obviously said time and time again, and it's true, that our elections are safe and secure and local. There are hundreds of jurisdictions that count the ballots across Michigan, Republican clerks, Democratic clerks. And, you could look back at the last election where, Donald Trump won Michigan, Alyssa Slotkin won Michigan, Mike Rogers lost Michigan. So this notion of, Donald Trump and John James, Republican candidate for governor, to say that like this was rigged or it was fixed or, the outcome was wrong, not true. And there's no evidence of it. And again, this is the effort of local Republican and Democratic clerks across the state of Michigan. There's a threat, and we're very concerned, and we're doing everything we can, I believe. When I say we, I mean, like I said, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, local clerks, attorneys, officials, people who are concerned about, preserving and maintaining and upholding our democracy and our voting here in the state of Michigan. We are on high alert. We know that this is an administration that's weaponized the Department of Justice to go after perceived enemies and threats to the president. And this is certainly something that we're on high alert for in Michigan. So, there's a fully robust plan to make sure that on election day, the results are kept secure and are accurate, and that there may be either intimidation of people at the polling places. That's not unexpected. There's a plan to respond to that. There is a potential expectation that results might be challenged if the losers don't like the results. And again, there's a plan in place to do everything we can to protect that election security. It's just, it's a crazy notion that our elections in Michigan aren't secure and have issues. And you can't say that when people from both parties win their elections. So whose win is invalid here? Is it Mike Rogers's? Is it Donald Trump's? Is it Senator Alyssa Slotkin's? It's just not anything other than invented fear mongering and weaponization here. And we plan to do everything we can to show that Michigan's elections are solid and secure.
Yeah, my partner Alex and I worked for Jocelyn through that last one, and she is focused like a laser beam on this. She's just amazing at and nothing's going to get by her. And so yeah, I think it doesn't mean that they're not going to try, but
yeah. And we have the full Attorney General's office at the ready. Attorney General Nessel briefed our caucus of Senate Democrats a few months ago with some of the preparations and expectations that she's making in light of this as well.
Well,
how can talk a little bit about if people who are listening to this, how can they help your campaign? Where can they find out more about you? Where can they donate? Those kinds of things. If you because we're kind of running out of time here, but I want to give you an opportunity. I think you're obviously, I hope our audience is taking an interest in your race, and how can they help?
Thanks so much. And I'd love to have that interest and support. I've been on the DCCC's Red to Blue candidate list, the first one that came out back in February. And we have been running really a top-notch campaign, but it does need support. We have early voting in Michigan starting on September 24th. So one of the best things we did in the state of Michigan was create no reason absentee voting. So someone can vote without having to give an excuse or a reason starting September 24th. So our window is really narrow. People are going to start voting potentially at the end of September. So I do need resources. If people can go to my website, Sean McCann for Congress, and make any kind of contribution to our effort, that helps us fuel our campaign. People can remote phone call from anywhere across the country. People can write postcards from somewhere else and send them. So there's a lot of ways for anyone to engage, whether they're in the 4th Congressional District or not. But it starts by going to my website, Sean McCann for Congress, And I'd welcome any and all support across the country. We got great people helping from all over the place. Chicago's close by. We have canvassers that come over from Chicago. And we've got just tremendous local energy here that I have never seen in my political experience. We had an open house with 5 days notice, and 80 people showed up here in Kalamazoo. It's happening all across the district, and you've seen it at the No Kings rallies across the country. Energy's off the charts. We need it all to win this race here.
If I'm not mistaken, and I may be mistaken, this is cherry season there in Michigan. Is it, I associate summer in Michigan with cherry pie. How's the crop this year?
Well, the main cherry growth is a little to the north of me. I'm more blueberry territory. So we just had a blueberry parade that we walked in this past weekend. But the crops have struggled. The tart cherry crop in Michigan, northern Michigan, has seen some struggles over the year. And you know what? You can track that back to some climate issues, quite frankly, and some of the things that we're seeing here with more tornadoes and more severe storms and drought that persists. So farmers are struggling, not to mention the cost of fertilizer that's making it really hard for them to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just one question I'm curious about in the Senate primary, where so much energy and the 1.5 million turnout. I mean, it just seems like there was so much energy there. And is that how? I mean, did you feel that on? I mean, in terms of the numbers that coming out in your district, is it? I know you said it was 100 to their 85, but it just seems to me that was a good thing, that race, regardless of what everybody thinks about who won and all that. I think, and I just, do you see it that way, or in terms of the energy it provided, and are you tapping into that?
I do, and I think it is there. I think there is a lot of engagement from young people, and as we know, this is always a challenge, engaging young folks to vote on a regular basis. I have a university, 2 colleges, and several community colleges in the 4th Congressional District that I hope to represent. And that consists of a lot of young people, 20,000 students at Western Michigan University. We're going to need that turnout to win this race here. So I think that the energy, the excitement, the enthusiasm looks really strong. And it's driven by all sorts of things: hope, frustration, anger, and that deep desire for a change. And I think that that's what is going to engage everybody. As I said, I've seen turnouts of No Kings rallies that I've never seen in places that I wouldn't have expected. And that was, months ago. And, now we've seen this primary turnout, and I think it will carry over. I think it's going to just keep moving and building. And we see that here right on the ground.
Great. Well, I think we're out of time. Joe, you got a
No, I think, I blew my wad with a cherry question.
Okay. Hey, Sean, thanks so much for being with us. Folks, check out his website, Sean McCann for Congress.com, correct?
Yes.
Great. Check him out there. Help if you can. Joe and I will be back next week. Thanks, Sean, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it greatly.
Terrific.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.